Head over to miniaturemarket.com where they have thousands of board games at discounted prices, and you can sign up for product alerts. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and it's time for another 10 of my 101 best games of all time. Now, if you've missed my previous ones, I'll put a link to the most recent one before this in the link below. And also, if you want to hear a little bit more back and forth and discussion about these games, in a few days, I'll be launching the Debunking Dan's List with Greg Dixon. Once that launches, I'll try to remember to put that link in here as well. But always best just to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of these videos. So let's get right to 60 to 51. Number 60 is an older 2013-ish game that came out, a negotiation game called Article 27. This was originally from Stronghold Games. This is a pure negotiation game that is a blast. Now in this game, everyone is basically a member of a different country. And everyone has these secret goals that they're going for. And so one player is trying to get everyone to kind of get on the same page with each other. And each round, players get these different tokens behind their shields secretly. And they know that if an article is passed this round with those different things in it, it's either going to be good for them or bad for them, or maybe both. Some tokens will be, hey, this is plus points, this one's minus points. So you're trying to vote and try to get things passed that will help you. The problem is everyone else is trying to do the same thing, so there's always give and take. And you're just trying to allow it to happen. So the player whose turn is running the round, they're going to be trying to get everyone to sort of agree on something, but players aren't going to like some of the things they put in there, and they're going to be fighting back and forth. They're going to be bribing people, like, hey, you don't want that in there? Well, what if I give you this? What if us three give you this many coins? Will you then be okay with this? And people are trying to get everyone to work together because the person who's put the deal together will get extra money if it goes through, if it gets approved, but other players are trying to get things for themselves, really. And another twist is that everyone has sort of a secret agenda, and among with some of these getting passed, there's certain points you're going to get at the end of the game if a certain amount of a certain type of agenda gets passed. It's kind of an abstract aspect about this, but it is a blast. It is so funny. You can have something that you definitely don't want, and you're like, you know what? If this goes through, I'm gonna veto, and it kind of like screws everybody up. But it's not good for you either. But it screws if everyone else is gonna be getting tons and tons of points, you're gonna get minus points. It might be worth it to veto, but just the threat of that, be like, if that's in, I'm vetoing. Then players are voting towards the end, and they can vote forward, they can abstain, stuff like that. So it's a very easy mechanically game, but it is a ton of fun. There's lots of negotiations, lots of working together, lots of funny, memorable moments in this game. Now the scoring in the game is, there's a little bit of imbalance where the player that goes last is the person that runs it. Everyone's got more money to deal with, so it's not quite as balanced as I would like from a scoring perspective, but this game isn't really about the scoring, it's about the experience. Great negotiation game, Article 27. This next one is a pretty interesting sort of abstract game that has a little bit to do with poker, but more about being creative about how you take sort of domino-like pieces and put them in front of you. Now, let me just give you a 1-minute overview of this works. Pyramid Poker is a 2-player game where you're going to be building up a pyramid and breaking it down and trying to beat the other player in at least 2 of the 3 hands by pokers going one against the other, hand 1, hand 2, hand 3. But you're never sure which cards are in the game because each player is going to get 15 blocks that they won't get to see, and there'll be a bunch of them in the box that are not used, so you can't be sure what's there. During the first half of the game, each player by one will be building up the pyramid where obviously you can only see your own side and you can't see the other side. And then once it's built, you're going to be taking blocks one at a time with nothing on top of it to add to your hand. And at the end, hopefully you've beat the player by having 2 of the 3 best hands. I love Pyramid Poker because, now I'm not a big poker player. I was maybe many moons ago. I played quite a bit of poker, but I don't really play it anymore, and I could take it or leave it. And you don't need to play or know poker in order to play this game because in the rules it just has the poker hands. It's like, hey, these are the best, these are the worst, this is how it ranks. But the game, this is such a brilliant game. Because when I first played this, the first thing that came to my mind was like, oh my gosh, this is basically kind of like Seven Wonders Duel, where you're drafting things. You're drafting these tiles that some of them you can see, some of them you can't see, and you're looking at all the tiles that you can see, and you're like, and you start to devise like these plans as to like the ones that you're gonna try to go for. And like you've got this plan, but you're gonna have to like fill it in at some point with things that you can't see. And that might totally change your strategy for the game. Like, oh my gosh, I pulled this. Sometimes you'll pull exactly what you need. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're like, you know what, that player is probably gonna get a flush over here. I can just dump the ones that I don't want in that hand and just call it, they got that one. Now I gotta win the other two. And there's some stand-up moments where you pull something and you just get exactly what you need. But even more importantly, you can take tiles in a way, or these dominoes, these blocks, in such a way that it kind of forces your opponent to take things that you want them to take, so that now it opens up things for that you want to take. Just like Seven Wonders Duel's drafting. And so it's basically like a light version of Seven Wonders Duel, but instead of getting all these other crazy things going on and currency and civilization stuff, you're basically just trying to get the best poker hands. It's amazing. I love this two-player game. It's fast, it's quick, it looks awesome, big chunky wooden bits. It's just a ton of fun. Even if you don't like poker, you gotta check this one out. If you like that Seven Wonders Duel drafting style, this is such a great like 20-minute game, Pyramid Poker. Number 58 is an abstract deduction game called Dimension. And it's a real-time game where you have a certain amount of time, and there's a certain amount of rules that come out. You have all these different spheres, and they're different colors, black and orange and blue and yellow and white, orange and white and green. And each round, a certain amount of rules come out that say, hey, the orange ball has to be on top of everything. No green balls can touch white balls. You have to have at least as many blacks as you do green, stuff like that. All these different rules, and you have a timer. And it is tense. You are trying with all the spheres to create the perfect pyramid of 11 spheres, without breaking any of those rules. If you do, you get a perfect score. Sometimes you can get that. But if you don't, then you're gonna get some minus points there. But if you're able to like perfectly make this thing, and you don't break any rules, you get that perfect score. But even if you don't build it all the way up to the top, if you build something and you don't you break any rules, you get like a bonus chit. And at the end of the game, you'll get negative points if you don't have enough of them, and then they scale quite often. So use this, even though you're doing this real time, and it's a brain burner, you're also got this strategy of like, I think I'll stop now. And the funniest thing is like, I always said they should have called this game, oh no! Because like, you build this thing, you're fast enough flurry, you think you got it set, and the time runs out, and then you start going through the rules, and you start looking at your thing, and you go, oh, I got this, yep, I got this, yep, I think this. Oh no! And that's like, they should rename this game Oh No. It's amazing. If you like deduction and you like real-time things, this game is absolutely fantastic. It doesn't look great on the box. It doesn't look incredibly intriguing on the table, but for someone that likes deduction and real-time, this is an absolute winner. Dimension. This next one is a social deduction game called Time Bomb. Now, there's a couple of different iterations of this. In North America, it is called Don't Mess with Cthulhu, and I hate the Cthulhu theme. I think it is boring, it's overused, I don't like it at all. So I found this as Time Bomb. Essentially, it's the same game, but I had to import it from Europe, buy it from Europe, because it was like the French version or whatever, and I had to print out English rules. And in this game, some people are working for Sherlock's team, and they're the good guys, and some of them are working for Moriarty, they're the bad guys. And the Sherlock team is trying to get through enough rounds where the bombs don't explode. And the bad guys are trying to make the bomb explode. And there is like one card that at any point in time, if it gets flipped over, it explodes and the bad guys win. I mean, we're talking about these games last probably 10 to 15 minutes, but you will play it 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times in a row. Like you'll play this for an hour and a half straight. That's how fun it is. And the cool thing about this game is that like every round, you're trying to figure out who to trust. You're trying to tell them which bomb, and you know at the beginning of the round, how many diffused things do I have, which are good, and how many, do I have a bomb, which is bad, of course. But you get to look at your cards, you know what you have, but then you shuffle them and you put them face down, so in a row, so you know what you have, but you don't know where they are. And so you could be like, hey, you know what? I have one good card here. You can come over here. Or if you have a good card but also the bomb, you might be quiet. And then everyone's like, oh, then the bad guys might be like, there's one more bomb around. He says he has none. I bet he has the bomb. Let's point it over there. Or like sometimes you'll like do these crazy things where you're like, okay, I'm the bad guy. I've got this. We got a 50-50 shot. Who's the other bad guy? and someone's like, it's me, let's win. You're like, haha, I was just kidding. Now you just let yourself out. Okay, who's really the good guys? And like its game is just, it's one of the best, pure, quick, streamlined social deduction games out there. Again, it's really hard to find. If you like the Cthulhu theme, get Don't Mess with Cthulhu. They also came out with a newer version that's more readily available called Time Bomb Evolution. It's not the same game. It kind of is, but they changed it. Tried to make it a little bit better, but in fact, I think they made it worse. It's not quite as fun. There's more going on, but that's really not what this game should be. So try to find the original Time Bomb or Don't Mess with Cthulhu, one of the best little social deduction games, and it plays as little as 4 players really well. This next one is a really cute, adorable, entry-level worker placement game that's not quite a legacy game, but goes down that route. Fabled Fruit. Let me give you a 1-minute overview of how this works. Fabled Fruit is a worker placement game for 2 to 5 players, where you'll be going to different cards, and you'll either be activating things like drawing fruits, or you'll be trying to use fruits in your hand to create different drinks. So you might be exchanging some fruits for other fruits from players, you might be getting cards from players and giving some back, you might be just drawing some, or you might be creating this. So if I had the 3 pineapples and the coconut, I could actually turn this in because this is a wild, and you would actually collect this fruit. This would be in front of me, and I made this juice. And each time a fruit is made, the card leaves the board, a new card from the draw deck comes up, and a new mechanism comes up many times. There's 4 cards of each mechanism, but then after that, new mechanisms come up, and the game will continue to change and evolve over time. Now there's 59 different mechanisms in this game that will get added over 20 different games. So after 20 or 21 games, you'll have gone through it all, but you can stop and write down where you left off so you can play with that group later in case you want to play with different groups. The reason why I love this game is because I often play games with new players that are not in the hobby. I'm constantly bringing people into the hobby. I play probably games with more non-gamers than gamers. And this game, A, it's approachable. B, it's cute and adorable. But sometimes when you play a lot of these sort of lighter games, you get a little sick of them over time. But this game, every time I teach it, it feels different because the puzzle is there. Because as you're playing the game and as things are happening, the cards are changing. And every group you play with, different cards are going to come out. So you're going to have different sets of abilities and different sets of animals out there that do different things. And there's these different synergies with some of these cards. And so that I might play 5 or 6 or 7 games with a group, and I might start over with a completely different group, 5, 6, or 7 plays, and I have a completely different game I'm playing because the different cards that are gone and new ones have come out, and they just synergize different. So for me, it feels like I'm playing a different game, but for the new people, it feels like they're playing an easy game. And this is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, sort of entry-level worker placement game because it's brilliant and it evolves over time. I love this Fabled Fruit. This next one I have a very heavy heart for. It's called the Game of 49. This essentially is kind of like Bingo or Connect 4, where you're just trying to get 4 in a row. But what happens is a number comes up and everybody auctions for it. And so let me give you a 1-minute overview of how this works. The Game of 49 is for 2 to 5 players, where you'll be participating in auctions and trying to win spaces on the board to get 4 in a row of your color. This can happen horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. Each round a card is turned up and everyone's bidding on this spot. The last person standing, the highest bidder, will win that spot and place their chip there. Other cards are wild and allow you to go into any unoccupied range of numbers on the board. Even better, there's a payoff with these wild cards, and the more chips you have on the board, the more money you'll make. So it's like an economic game in disguise. And it wouldn't be the Game of 49 if the 49 spot wasn't important because the person that wins there gets the best spot on the board. If they win it again, they can go anywhere they like, but it's also the only spot that you can get bumped off. Do you have what it takes to manage your cash and win enough auctions to get 4 in a row in this family level auction game that's full of excitement? There's only one way to find out. Yeah, I love this game, and the 2 people that published this game are some of the nicest folks I've ever met. And I discovered this game at Board Game Geek Con many years ago, and I was on the Dice Tower at the time, and I went on on their podcast and said this was the surprise game for me at the con. And then the next day they sold out, and they were like, "Thank you so much, this is great." So I stayed in touch with them. And over the course of the years, it was my family game of the year, and I just kept giving it more and more press. And eventually, it got picked up by a bigger publisher, Breaking Games, and we finally they finally got this into Target, which was amazing. And the publishers were just like the original designers were so excited that I saw in this game how fun it was, and I helped sort of be the flag bearer for this game. And I've never seen it not go over well. It's so fun. You're fighting over things. You're trying to make other people pay to block other people so that you can win 4 in a row. There's also, knowing when to spend all your money, when to have money out, rooting for a dry spell of no cash or rooting for a bonus so you can get some money back, trying to knock somebody off the 49 spot so you could win it again and put a spot anywhere. It's very light and it's very simple, but there is some good strategy. This is like an economic game in disguise. That fact that you get $7 for every chip on your board, up to 7, is just a brilliant thing with this game. I love it. It's one of my favorite go-to beginner games. The game of 49, but gamers love it too. This next one is one of the most absolute classics of 2-player card games from Reiner Knizia, Lost Cities. Let me give you a 1-minute overview of how this works. Lost Cities is 3 rounds long, and each round you're going to be going to some of these 5 different locations in the game. Turns are very simple. You're going to play a card, then pick up a card, with the only rule being that as you play cards, you can only go up in values. So over the course of different turns, I could be playing multiple cards in this place, but now that I've gotten there, I cannot play the 9 because it's before the 10, and I'm trying to get at least 20 points when I start somewhere because I've already committed, and I only get points for everything over 20. But instead of playing down on my side, I can play in the middle for a discard, which might have my opponent pick this up. So you're constantly trying to figure out which cards to lay down, which ones to hold away from your opponent, and when to go all out by possibly doubling, tripling, or quadrupling your positive or negative score on a specific place, but you're tipping your hand off to your opponent. Since drawing a card can be done from the draw deck or from the table, you can actually manipulate how long the game is, which is a very interesting aspect of it. After the draw pile empty, you score the round, and you do that for 3 full times, and whoever has the most points at the end is the winner. Yeah, it's an absolute classic. We'll be playing forever. It's awesome. It's so great. It's easy to teach, but this game has so much tension in it. This game has... It's like your hand gets filled up and you have a plan for every card in your hand. It seems like every game, for the whole game. And it's like, oh, I can't throw this. Oh, I don't want to discard this. And like sometimes it's like, well, what's the lesser of most evils, And it's like I've got all these cards and I've got a plan for red, and then the other player throws down like that investment handshake card of red for their first card. You're like, oh man, we're gonna be fighting for this the whole time. They don't know I had the 9 and 10. They're gonna get hosed. Let me just like hold these cards for a little bit while longer and hope I get 1 or 2 others so I can get some scoring. And if I do, maybe I'll throw down a handshake if I get it, Or sometimes you're like, I'm gonna put this card on the board. Let's hope they don't take it. Oh, good, they didn't. And you're like, press your luck. You're like, how long can I keep it there? You know what? Oh, now I'm gonna pick it back up. It's almost like temporary storage if you can slide it by them. Or sometimes towards the end of the game, you're trying to like pick up a bunch of cards from this one pile to try to get to another color at the end of the game. You can change the end of the game of like how fast it ends. This game, for how simple it is, which is like play a card, draw a card, has so much depth to it. It is amazing. Lost Cities. This next one's a much heavier game than the last few I've mentioned. This was in the running for my strategy game of the year last year. It's from CGE called Lost Ruins of Arnak. Let me give you a 1-minute overview of how this works. Lost Ruins of Arnak is an exploration game for 1 to 4 players where you'll be going off and digging at different places, gathering resources. You'll also be exploring new areas which will give you even better options, but they're always going to be guarded by guardians that you'll need to take out, or else you'll gain some fear, which is bad. But taking them out can gain you points at the end. You'll be spending resources to do some research, getting you points at the end, but also some bonuses like assistance, which will give you all sorts of different abilities that you can use each turn. And if you research far enough, you'll get tons of points, but also still be able to research those ruins even more for more points. You'll also be purchasing items that will give you points at the end, but also cool abilities, and you'll usually get to use these cards right on your next turn. You'll also be purchasing even more powerful cards, which are the artifacts that give you really powerful abilities to do throughout the game, and you get to use them right away. On your turn, you're going to be selecting cards to use for travel or its abilities, and it's a very interesting twist on deck building. Yeah, I'm not really big on deck building, but the game doesn't feel like your standard deck builder. Because even with the deck building elements in there, you're placing worker placement and you're doing this and you're doing that. And there's a ton of stuff you can do. And then maybe you're playing a bunch of cards doing this, but there's other things going on other than the deck building. But I do love that they sort of accelerated the deck building in this, where some cards, you pay for those architects cards. You get to pay and use them like right away. And you don't have to wait for that, right? And so there's some things that they've done with the deck building that I really do enjoy a lot in this game. And then sometimes there's some that you get, and you get to put them on top of your pile, which means you know you're going to get them next turn. You don't have to wait for your deck to cycle. And I love that. There's still lots of great decisions. Do I go up the track to try to explore? Do I go get the Guardians? Or do I go explore a new place to get a bunch of resources? It's tense. It feels like you're never going to get a lot done, but the combos that you do, you have huge turns towards the end of this game where you're doing a bunch of stuff in one big turn, double-sided board with a lot of replayability. Oof. This is a heavy game, or a heavier game. I'd say it's at least medium, maybe medium heavy, because it's just, maybe not mechanically speaking, but thoughtfulness. This game is a brain burner, but I love it. Lost Ruins of Arnak. This one, number 52, is from Stefan Feld. This is one of his sort of lighter, shorter games. Play it in an hour or less, called Carpe Diem. This is a tile laying game, sort of action selection tile laying game, where you are placing your worker somewhere, picking up a tile and placing it somewhere on your grid. And you're trying to build different areas like grapes and water and chicken fields and things like that. And as you do that, you'll be getting a different amount of goods of those types. But at the end of each round, so interesting, is that you're trying to figure out what you're going to score that round. And you're working towards that, because if you can score it, you'll get some positive points, but somebody else might steal that spot before you. So turn order is really important in this game. But you're always planning forward, and if you don't get it, it's terrible. It destroys you if you're not able to score something in a round. But there's some things like that you can use for wild goods, like the money, and then there's different things that you can get. These cards are like strategy cards and give you some different things to go for the end of the game. Or you can go for a long-term game and try to get a big village with a bunch of chimneys on there. There's so much to think about, but the game is simple. Move a guy, move your worker, get a tile, place it. That's it. But there's so much to think about. You're also trying to line up different types of things, like the grape fields and the chicken fields, over certain parts of your grid on the outside of your board, which is super interesting. So it's kind of abstracted, but it is just solely engaging. It'd be higher in this list if the game looked a little better. Now, I have reviewed the 3rd edition, which is the best looking version out there, but the art on the tiles still isn't not like great, but the game is fantastic. If you like sort of Carcassonne style tile laying games, this is like that on steroids, but it's not too difficult and still can be played an hour or less. Carpe Diem. This next one is a new one, relatively new. It came out last year. This is my last one of this list, Calico. This is from AEG here in North America. Let me give you a 1-minute overview of how this works. Calico is a puzzly strategy game for 1 to 4 players where each player is filling in their entire board with these different quilt-type tiles. You'll be getting points by having 3 or more of the same color, or by finishing goals, like in this case, having none of the same colors or patterns surrounding it, or attracting cats, like having 3 or more of the same pattern around, or maybe having 5 in a row of one of these patterns, getting big points for some of these cats. But your board looks like this when you start, and even the goals can be randomized. You're simply placing a tile and drawing one from the supply, and then it's the next player's turn. You can also try to get different achievements each game, having a running total throughout your game lifetime. And they have different scenarios you can try to go through with different setups and different objectives for you to get to the next level. There's also a solo mode which also uses this. So let's see if you can puzzle out all 3 different main objectives at once. Yeah, this game, I love this game. I like puzzly games. It's beautiful, and you're just trying to figure this out. I like that each game your goals are different, and I like that your goals on your board often kind of conflict with each other. So you're kind of forced to be like, oh, if I put this tile here, I'll be able to get this goal for this many points. If I do it perfectly, I'll get even this many points, but I'm really going to be giving up this entire goal. So maybe I go for this one, and this one over here, I leave this one off. And now let me try to focus on some of these other bigger, larger goals of trying to attract the cats by putting maybe 5 in a row of this pattern type or this and this. And there's a lot of like conflicting things, or some things, if you can figure out which goals go best with each other, you have this overarching strategy. Now the game can be a little punishing, a little unforgiving with the tile drafting, because you might be waiting for one exact tile that you need and it just might not come out. And that could be a pain in the butt. So the game's not perfect, but I absolutely love the puzzle in this. I know there's a lot of buzz these days for a game that's published by the same publisher called Cascadia that feels very similar to this in a puzzly aspect, but is a little bit more open. I've played it once and I can say I agree with that. Cascadia is amazing. If I've played it more, when I made this list, it probably would be on this list. That's how much I love Cascadia. But I've only played it once, and I played Calico a ton of times. So Calico is here, but it might get displaced for Cascadia. And they're different games, but they are so similar, and they do similar things that I'm not sure you need both of them. But Cascadia I love. But this one is for Calico because I've played it a lot more. It's a fantastic, very thinky, puzzly game where there's not going to be a lot of talking in this game. You're going to be staring at your own little solitaire board, trying to figure it out, and hoping that the right tiles come up at the right time as well. That's Calico. All right, well, there is 60 to 51. I hope you enjoyed this. Now, remember, in a few days, I'm going to be doing a Debunking Dan's List with Greg Dixon, and hopefully I'll remember to put that link here after it launches a few days from now, and you'll hear us discuss some of these games, and I know there's at least one on here that he is not fond of. There are a couple on here that he absolutely loves, but there's definitely one on here that he is not even a fan of at all. I saw someone actually ask him if he would play it the other day. He's like, yeah, I don't care about that one. So that will be an interesting one to hear us discuss this. And you'll hear me discuss more experiences with these games. This has been the Game Boy Geek, breaking down barriers, growing relationships through board games by helping you find the next one you'll love. Game Toppers not only transforms your existing table to a high-quality gaming solution, they now offer full leg kits and dining cover solutions for the full table application. Paired with their amazing, thematic, premium stitch edge mats from noted board game artists like Vincent Dutray, collapsible cup holders, and really cool accessories, it's a complete system that upgrades every game you play. Go to GameToppersLLC.com or click the link below.